was born in 1968, and I think there's a prevailing feeling amongst people from my generation that that was the fulcrum of contentment in the last century, that we entered the world at a point where it had woken up from the stiff-collared, bowler-hatted reserve of pre-war England and equally distanced itself from the full-tilt naivety of psychedelic Britain. We'd been washed onto a safe shore of cheeseclothed, buck-toothed, lollygobble choc-bomb wielding long hot summers. Yeah, I'm sure that George Orwell, Jane Austen, Lord Byron and a host of others would question my assertion, but I had a happy childhood. How could I not? My nights were spent in feverish imaginings, my toenails snagging on the abrasive fabric of the coffee-coloured bry nylon undersheet, my body damp beneath the Winceyette blanket. Outside, the thrum of the pre-central heating fan heater, glowing sickly in the half-light. My outer vision was lost in the crystalline palaces of the ice on the inside of the window, bruising outwardly to my touch. All of it was dripping down into the densely patterned curtain fabric, my mind stalking shadows and stories in the long grass of those hippie nouveau Bieber patterns. All of it peopled by a throng of phantoms from 70s childhood TV. Looming buildings, singing static, blurred chants, pools of shifting darkness at the top of the stairs, standing stones and monk ghosts, half submerged in fractured shouts from abandoned buildings. Dark, delirious, mock medieval sci-fi hi-fi. Sounds fun, huh? And I also played here, in the bizarre Doric folly behind me. A little replica of the Temple of Hephaestus, would you believe? And actually Britain's first neoclassical building. You catch it in glimpses through the woods from the dual carriageway below as it thunders on to Birmingham and Hales Owen and back. I picture my son's thoughts as I tried to explain it was where I played, and he craned his neck up through the constraints of the car window, half comprehending. All of this would be reason enough to visit, but they weren't my reasons. I came here simply to play and go newting. I was unaware of the history of the place, and yet I was entirely receptive to its disquieting atmosphere. There's a 28-tree yew grove here, with supposed pagan significance. They found Roman coins here. It's the site of a hill fort. Stories abound that Boudica herself trod these woods, that there was a tremendous battle here. It's supposed to be a Lammas field. You know, Lammas Tide, the August festival. You can hear the nurse in Romeo and Juliet. You can hear her loquacity and circumlocution, things that are very near to my heart, when she talks about Juliet's birth. And the whole place has a sense that if you tore open the fields, the phantoms of pre-Christian England would people the air like that bestiary that gusts from up Kate Bush's skirt on the front cover of Never Forever, if you'll pardon the expression. And all of that's without a single word concerning the place's primary placing in popular and unpopular culture alike. Who put Bella in the Wych Elm? I won't burden this little film with the facts, details, suppositions and superstitions surrounding the discovery of a woman's corpse in a hollow tree by 4 schoolboys here in 1943. There's been other films, there's been a musical, there's even been a song.
They build a monument to your memories. Does anyone really care at all? If you go down in the woods today, make sure you don't go there alone, for some old black magic can take you away back to a time so long ago. Who put Bella in the Wych Elm? Who gave her the golden ring? Married at the altar in the woodland, in a place where the birds don't sing. Some say it was the devil's work, some say it was an act of war, but nobody really ever knew she was a gypsy mother lover. Oh. A silent prayer on that lonely hill, and read the words upon the stonework, and wonder if time will ever tell. If you go down in the woods today, make sure you don't go there alone, for some old black magic can take you away back to a time so long ago. Weird thing about this guitar case, it belonged to my father-in-law, and in it was a 1979 Fender acoustic. When he died, he never learned to play the guitar. When he died, my mother-in-law said, "Is there anything you'd like of his?" And I said, "Well, I'd like that guitar." He says, "Well, you can have it as long as you promise never to sell it," which I don't. It's a, as I say, 79 Fender. It never leaves the house, and I never record with it. But when I took the guitar out, there was under the neck was a rolled up copy of the County Express from 1980, and weirdly in there was a picture of my grandparents, their 50th wedding anniversary, and it was like, whoa, that's weird, and like almost like the...
That's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Spookiness.
Serendipity.
Yes.
Unbelievable. The County Express.
The County Express in 1980. Forerunner of the Isles Owen News. Stourbridge News, etc.
I will, however, try to sketch a hazy little word cloud of those details. the body placed there warm, rigor mortis warping tight into the wood, the hand of glory, the hand that did the deed, a wedding ring and a skeletal mouthful of taffeta, a Nazi agent and a cabaret singer, a Dutchman and the inmate of a mental asylum haunted by recurring images of a woman's face peering from a tree, and above all for me, mysterious graffiti in yellow tortoise paint. Not familiar with yellow tortoise paint? Allow me to explain. For me, the film of my life starts with me on the lawn, the uncut lawn of 23A Farlands Road, rosy-cheeked, polo-necked, wellied, parting the long grass and finding, to my surprise, a large male tortoise, its shell daubed in yellow gloss paint. Annuals and gazetteers in those days used to actually actively encourage you to paint their shells, to even drill holes in their shells and attach little name tags. I kid you not. Remember, this is a world where you could buy random reptiles and amphibians at the newsagents. My local newsagent sold axolotls, the permanently pubescent tadpole salamanders that live in the caves beneath Mexico City, would you believe? You couldn't make it up, could you? But it was that exact shade of yellow paint that was daubed on a tree with the slogan, "Who put Bella in the Wych Elm?" just down there. The tree's hollow, it's now in pieces. Presumably those two things contributed to the slogan being put on it. And I suppose I must have asked my dad about it and he explained. But as if the place wasn't disquieting and atmospheric enough, it jostled it straight into pole position, into first place, above Kimber Edge and Mary Stevens Park and the Devil's Armchair at Habley Valley and Norton Covert, as the place that provided the backdrop for my dreams, waking and otherwise. But it wasn't just my dreams. For me, there was always a sense that this place was lurking around the corner on the edge of the TV screen, that if the camera had kept on panning, then the temple, the obelisk and the hollowed tree would lurch sickeningly into view, accompanied by that kind of swooning madrigal and fisheye lens from Children of the Stones. Usually it was a kind of vague sense of place, as if the village of Devil's End, for instance, in the John Pertwee Doctor Who adventure The Demons, was somewhere around here, or somewhere it was. Sometimes it was an exact location. For instance, I thought that the woods there was where Mark Harrison was covered in leaves at the beginning of Kid Pedler and Jerry Davis's Sky, and it was here, in my newting pond, the one that I'm currently sinking into, where I thought dwelt the Black Prince of 70s tea time dread, the spirit of dark water. The early 70s was a period in which the commercial break, as it was then known, wasn't just trying to sell you something, at least not in terms of a physical product anyway. It was trying to warn you of dangers. The dangers of strangers, farm machinery, fire, abandoned buildings, electricity pylons, stretches of dark and stagnant water. You don't see many public health and safety information adverts these days. The odd mobile phone related traffic admonishment. You might think that's because the youth of today are so thoroughly tooled up and sensible with regard to the dangers of the outside world. Well, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but it certainly did the job for my generation. You won't catch me trying to retrieve my Frisbee from the electricity substation anytime soon, I can tell you. Dark and Lonely Water is a masterpiece of sorts. Shot in Heathrow in 1973 in response to growing concern about the number of swimming-related deaths It is a distillation of childhood dread. Donald Pleasance, could you think of anyone better, provides the voiceover as the spirit. Hooded, empty-faced and half-submerged, he presides over the watery deaths of foolhardy children, dragged down to the hidden horrors of discarded cars and appliances. One of the children who saves the drowning child in the advert looks exactly like me at the time. Same hair and clothes, as the few remaining photos testify. We took precious few in those days. He doesn't sound like me though. His juvenile Cockney twang is of the period too, like the visions that warned Macbeth to beware Macduff in the Polanski version from 3 years earlier. The thing so terrified me that my fear of it became swollen and deranged. It led to me being unable to enjoy my then favourite TV programme, the newly televised TV version of Planet of the Apes on a Saturday night. I became convinced that the advert was only shown on the commercial breaks in that particular programme, and as each segment of the programme came to a close, I would become nervous, dash out, stand transfixed behind the green door of the living room and wait for my parents to call me back in. It became a kind of a hook upon which to hang all of my childhood terrors, and they exacerbated it and augmented it. The Faceless Dummies from Spearhead from Space, another Pertwee episode. An episode of Black Beauty that also featured a monk ghost, a faceless ghost in a hood from the same year. And the faceless nun in the rocking chair atop the tower in a later episode of Armchair Thriller, the credits of which were terrifying in themselves. I remember associating it with fragments of conversation overheard from my parents, a sketchy description of that practically unwatchable infant drowning scene in Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now. And I also remember a particular trick that my father played on me one dark November evening while the aforementioned episode of Black Beauty was playing. He stood outside the living room window in the darkness, dressed in a hooded duffel coat and a skeleton mask. I tried a similar thing a few years later, a more benign version, when my two were little. I stood outside in the darkness dressed as Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas, and my son said, "It's Dad in a mask." They seem to be less bothered by that kind of thing, the half-glimpsed horror, this generation, more sure of themselves altogether. I recall walking past the Posada in Wolverhampton with my son and telling him that that was where me and his mother had our first date, and my response to a similar disclosure from my father would have been a silent nod. His was, "Ooh la la!" Times change. They certainly do. I can freeze the frame on YouTube now and clearly make out the black face covering that the actor wears inside the hood in The Spirit of Darkwater. It's a vista that my 10-inch black and white could not have afforded. Would that disclosure have calmed me as a child? Would it have abated my fears? I think not. It is the eye of childhood that fears the painted devil, whether you tell them it's painted or not. My fears now are all too grounded in reality, but that's because I'm nearer the end than the beginning. Who knows how much thread there is in my personal box of yarn. But for now, let's go back to when I was just near the start. Let's dolly and track up down Monument Lane, out onto the Hagley Causeway, down to the roundabout, along the Hagley Road, take a sharp left down Field Lane, up that dark L-shaped alley and out onto Love Lane, then right for Farlands Road. Go up the drive and peer in through the frosted inlay of the stained glass. Can you see me? There I am, standing terrified behind the green painted living room door. waiting for the advert break in Planet of the Apes to finish. If, like Shakin' Stevens, that raven-haired Welsh rocker, you don't know what's going on behind the green door, well, you do now.
Don't throw fireworks, they may rearrange your. Charlie says don't talk to strangers. Be careful on escalators. I won't be there when you cross the roads. There's a phony superhero when the spandex flows. Don't act the fool like Peculiar and Joe. Please follow the firework code. I play like an Apache on the railway line. Think once, think twice, for God's sake, think back. Blink and it might just save your life. Hey! Don't dazzle tip your headlights. Stay safe, stay seen every night. With an inside left and an inside right. Not all burglars look like Bill Sykes. Hunt, kick every trip. Don't be like Dave, keep in the swim. Fatal flaws might be slippy. Don't forget to say a prayer for Jimmy. Into the substation and died of a 60,000 volt bell bottom incineration. Don't throw your foot into the pylons high. I play like an Apache on the railway line. Think once, think twice, for God's sake, think back. Blink and it might just save your life. Hey! Don't throw your Frisbee near the pylons high. I play like an Apache on a railway line. Think once, think twice, for God's sake, think back. Blink and it might just save your life. Hey! Don't throw your Frisbee near the pylons high. I play like an Apache on a railway line. Think once, think twice, for God's sake, think back. Blink and it might just save your life. Don't throw your Frisbee near the pylons high. I play like an Apache on a railway line. Think once, think twice, for God's sake, think back. Blink and it might just save